you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit afa.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. A former New Mexico judge and his wife were arrested last week for harboring an illegal alien gang member in their home. Officials raiding the home of Joel Cano and his wife Nancy. Board Czar Tom Homan reacting to the arrest, saying you can disagree with the administration's policies, but there's a line you shouldn't cross.
What I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted, judge or not.
Meanwhile, another judge has learned the hard way that it's not wise to violate federal law. Wisconsin judge Hannah Dugan was arrested and charged with obstruction of an official proceeding on Friday after evidence came to light that she shielded an illegal alien from ICE agents. She was also charged with concealing an individual to prevent discovery and arrest. Fox News legal editor Greg Jarrett.
The protesters were marching and chanting in their own liberal echo chamber. Their words tend to bounce off the bubble they live in. I'm not sure it affects anybody else. And I suspect these are the same people who in the past screamed that a president is not above the law, meaning Donald Trump. But apparently they now think that judges are above the law. Some of the placards hailed Judge Hannah Dugan as a hero. Well, I've got news for them. There's nothing heroic about breaking the law. She's charged with obstruction and concealment, aiding and abetting an illegal alien escape, arrest.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says Judge Dugan put her activist support for illegal aliens above the rights of crime victims in her own courtroom, and she's going to pay for it.
They found out that the judge learned that ICE was outside because he was an illegal alien from Mexico to arrest him, to deport him. She found that out. She raised her voice with the ICE, told them to go see the chief judge, came back in. While court was going on, she motioned for the defense attorney and the defendant to come up, snuck them out through a private chamber. You can't make this up. In her courtroom, snuck them out a back exit so he could run down the street. ICE ended up chasing him down the street. Someone saw him, chased him, caught him eventually. But, you know, the reason ICE, they make arrests in courtrooms all the time is because it's safe. A defendant has gone through security. They don't have a weapon. It's an easy arrest. No one's injured. But because she did this, she jeopardized the lives of law enforcement officers, even the defendant. By doing this, they had to have a chase down the street.
Christian parents in Maryland are suing their local school district, saying it will not allow their daughter to graduate. Chris Woodward has more.
At issue is a mandatory LGBTQ health class. This is in Montgomery County, Maryland, and the student's name has not been identified. Her family told Fox News Digital that it's been fighting for over 2 years to get an opt-out or to be allowed to take an alternative class at a private school or do independent study under a teacher that the school district could choose. Those efforts have not been successful. AFN reached out to Jeffrey Trimbath of Maryland Family Institute for comment.
This is another illustration of the very sad fact that Montgomery County Public Schools loves radical gender ideology more than they love students, particularly religious students.
The Montgomery County, Maryland school system was at the U.S. Supreme Court last week for another case where Christian, Muslim, and Jewish parents argued the district took away their opt-outs for instructions that involved radical LGBTQ books. The Interreligious Coalition of Parents is asking for that opt-out to be restored.
Judging from the comments of the justices, I think it's going to be a good result. So hopefully that will produce justice for this high schooler and justice for all of the parents in Maryland schools.
I'm Chris Woodward.
U.S. stocks are drifting ahead of a busy week with several potential flashpoints for financial markets. The S&P 500 up 0.1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 198 points, and the NASDAQ Composite slipped 0.1%. More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously.
The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Today is Monday, April the 28th, 2025. I'm Tim Wildman, and joining me in studio is Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Hey, good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Hello, Tim.
You guys have a good weekend?
Had a really good weekend.
Yeah.
It was good. I had to preach a funeral of a dear friend who had passed away, good Christian woman, on Saturday. Had a men's meeting at church last night, so it was a busy weekend.
Was it like men only?
It was men only.
You guys need to get up to speed on what's happening in society, huh?
And listen, it was, I don't know, probably 300 guys showed up, and they had cooked steaks for everybody. I don't know how they cooked that many steaks, but
yeah.
It's our church, Tim. You didn't go?
Was yours cooked? No, I didn't go. Sorry.
I'm picking on you.
So
anyway,
you sacrifice cows at your church?
Yeah.
Somebody sacrificed them. They sacrificed for the men of the church.
Let me tell you, I know this church is a bunch of carnivores. Like 100%. These ain't no veggie vegan people.
He's a manly man.
They hunt, kill,
eat meat.
They hunt, kill, and eat.
You're lucky if it's cooked.
I'll take the raw piece.
You're lucky if it's cooked.
Now get back to your table.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we hope everybody had a nice weekend. And
well, what did you guys do?
Fred?
Well, just enjoy being outside. We have a lake near our home base here in Tupelo. We have a lake about 20 minutes from our house.
Yeah.
Lake Lamar Bruce, for those.
Yeah.
Oh, it's yours?
Yeah.
Lake Lamar Bruce?
Yeah, Fred bought it. He's a real estate tycoon.
We love going there and just sitting by the shore.
Yeah.
And just enjoying the scenery.
Yeah.
And this is the time of the year when the Canadian geese, my brothers, the Canadian geese, start having little ones.
Oh.
And so you have, it is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you know that geese, male, female, they mate for life?
Really?
Yeah, they stick together for life.
Oh.
It's amazing. And so we're starting to see, ones that are 3 or 4 weeks old, a couple of weeks old, that sort of thing. It's amazing to watch.
Okay,
so we have a lot of fun.
Let me just ask you a question here, okay?
Uh-huh.
I'm not up on geese like I should be.
Okay.
But like we had a couple fly over the house this weekend.
Okay.
And I do this every time you hear them fly over honking. I say, welcome home, boys. But you're saying it's probably a male and female.
Yeah, that could be. This is the time of the year. Yeah. And we have a warm enough climate here that these geese around here stay all year.
Oh, okay. All right.
They don't go to Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's the tariff thing going on.
They're Canadian geese, but they speak Southern.
That's right.
They've been slapped with a tariff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So the male and female stay together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just fascinating to watch, and the way they move through the water. There's Mama, I think, is out in front.
Yeah.
Then there's the babies, and then Daddy behind. That they go, I guess, what's called Indian file.
Yeah.
And
that's very similar to Italian households where the wife starts the car in the morning. The husband starts. I always tell my, hey, go. When it's cold, go start the car. And years ago, it used to be because, if someone planted a bomb, The wife starts the car.
Now, I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring up the mafia thing.
I'm just kidding, folks. Please don't email Tim.
Yeah. Because why? Because Tim has a garage that shuts. That way nobody has to go start the car early. All right. Well, we hope everybody had a nice weekend, and we have got a lot going on in our world. Something big happened in Colorado last night, Fred.
Yeah, well, it was early Sunday morning, and there was a raid on what's being called an after-hours nightclub. And it was, I wouldn't be so surprised if it was in Boulder, Colorado, or even Denver, but this was in Colorado Springs. And this after-hours nightclub apparently has been in existence for some time, and about 200 federal agents from various federal agencies were involved with this. They raided this club, and over 100 illegal immigrants were arrested, along with, and I'm sorry to report this, 12 active members of our military were either in the club or were providing security. Attorney General Pam Bondi was on Fox and Friends this morning and talked about this raid early Sunday morning. Cut number 1.
America is safer tonight thanks to Donald Trump. During the Biden administration, they received 170 911 calls to that club alone. That club we were just watching, 170 calls. Wouldn't you think that would have been a red flag? Nothing happened. Guns, shootings, ag batteries, nothing happened. So under Donald Trump, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, ICE, everyone went in together. DEA led this investigation, went in, got 115 illegal aliens in our country, arrested them, 2 with warrants, 12 guns seized.
Yeah, along with other things. They apparently, according to the reports coming from authorities, when people went into this club, they were given a sheet of paper that was a menu for illegal drugs, and they could pick which illegal drug they wanted. And also there was rampant prostitution going on in this place. I hope you heard what Pam Bondi said. When Joe Biden was president, there were over 170 911 calls on this club. Nothing was done under Joe Biden. Didn't touch it. But now we have these people arrested. Like I say, sorry to report that 12 of those arrested were active members of the military. There's quite a few military bases in the Colorado Springs area, so we will see what happens.
Well, but why would that be a state issue? I mean, a federal issue if 911 calls go to your sheriff's office?
Well, the question is going to be, why didn't the sheriff notify somebody in immigration? Perhaps they did, but Joe Biden's administration decided not to do anything. I think that's what Pam Bondi said.
I got you.
Well, and I'm looking at a Fox News story. I didn't check to see if it's on American Family News about the photos at the White House. Do we have a story on that? Anyway, it's photos at the White House, kind of big posters, yard signs of 100 illegal immigrants, and it's just all in a row. And I just watched a video as someone drove by from Fox News, catching all of these yard signs with these individuals. I was shocked at how many involved crimes against children and minors.
Yeah.
These were some bad folks, allegedly. I'm not calling out any names, but I'm reading what's underneath: distribution of fentanyl, MS-13 member, and homicide, and also sexual crimes against women, adults. So these were some bad folks, and I just got to tell you that I know we're all kind of, as Tim puts it, with our fingers crossed about the tariff situation, but in terms of the border, the Trump administration is hitting home run after home run.
Yes,
they are determined to secure that border, which it looks like it is absolutely secured. I noticed a quote from Tom Homan. Again, the Biden administration, plenty of deserved criticism, but he said, quote, Tom Homan, who's the border czar, Joe Biden was the first president in the history of this nation who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose.
We have that from Tom Holman this morning.
Apologize for
cut number 5. No, it's okay.
I've been at this for over 40 years. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president ever worked for took border security seriously, because you can't have national security if you don't have strong border security. We got to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where's coming in, why it's coming in, right? Even President Obama and President Clinton took some steps to secure the border because they understood national security was important. Joe Biden was the first president in the history of this nation who came into office and unsecured a border on purpose. That's just a fact. We handed the Biden administration, after President Trump's first administration, we handed the Biden administration the most secure border in my lifetime, and he unsecured it on purpose. Now President Trump and this administration here, their success is unprecedented. We beat Trump's first administration on border success. Border numbers are historic low. Today, as I'm standing here, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation. And the numbers prove it.
Well, that was Tom Homan, the border czar.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have an official title other than border czar?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He works directly under President Trump, or does he work under Homeland Security?
Homeland Security.
Okay. So, just one political point on that, and we've mentioned this many, many times, but to Tom Homan's point right there, and he said 40 years of experience, and notice he didn't criticize other Democrat presidents.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He did not say Obama did this. Oh, he said every president he'd worked under since Ronald Reagan, both Democrat and Republican, had taken border security seriously.
Yeah.
That's what, now maybe some to one degree or another, more or less. However, he said Joe Biden intentionally destroyed the border security apparatus that was in place.
Can I give you some firm numbers? And this is from the Associated Press this morning.
A liberal group.
All right. In December of 2023, Joe Biden is president. Border crossings, illegals, 249,740.
In 1 month.
In 1 month. All right. In February of this year, 8,346.
Wow. Wow, that's just a credit to President Trump and his team. They have shut down illegal entry into this country. I'll also say this again it's a political point to make, but still needs to be said again. Just to Tom Homan's point there, you might ask, well, surely a president of the United States would care about border security. Surely not, because President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris too, and the people that surrounded them, they didn't believe in borders.
No. They
believe borders are immoral, to the extent that they have a moral value system. They believe that so yes, they wanted as many people to pour into our country as possible, and not only Biden, but the Democrat Party. What the Democrat Party hopes to get out of this, the reason they don't care how many people pour into America, and they didn't, because they could have stopped it too. They could have said to their own president, hey, what are you doing? Now, some did. The mayor of New York, for example.
Yeah.
But he got, indicted soon after he criticized Biden on this and fellow Democrats, because it was personally affecting him and his city. They were being told, you got to house all these people, but the federal government's not going to give you any money to help you on that. But the ultimate goal would be, you say, well, why wouldn't they care about border, how many people come in here illegally? Because they want them to become legal, so they vote for Democrats.
Right.
That's the objective. That's the ultimate objective. They want all these people the millions that they let in, then convert them to a, quote, pathway to citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And that pathway to citizenship leads them to being lifelong Democrat voters.
Yeah, turn the whole country blue.
Right.
That was their goal.
So it was a political objective, by the Democrats to let as many millions of people pour into our country illegally. They don't care what their they don't care.
Right.
They just said let them all in. If you deny letting them all in, then you're putting kids in cages. You know, that's basically the narrative that the Democrats wanted to put out there. So Trump has, he followed through. He as an administration are following through with their promises to secure the border, and in addition to that, to get rid of as many as they can of the bad guys that are here,
right,
inside the country now, dealing in drugs and violence and gang activity and fentanyl and all these things that are harming our nation. Tom Homan and President Trump, they want to get these bad guys out. So that's what that's why this raid took place at this club in Colorado. Was it last night or Sunday night?
Early Sunday morning.
Early Sunday morning. And how many people were arrested?
115.
115. And so I guess they're being arrested. They're having to be adjudicated or find out what their claims are now.
By the way, I did look up, and Tom Homan does have an official title. It is White House Executive Associate Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations, which is why everyone calls him Border Czar.
Hard to put that
What's the acronym for that? Airplane?
That's
something? I don't know.
One more point. Tom Homan was on. He was giving a briefing from the White House this morning. One of the other things he mentioned that Joe Biden did, he said that there was the policy in place is when someone enters this country illegally, they're caught by the border people, they are immediately deported. They don't have to go to a court hearing. He said what Biden did is immediately ship these people who entered the country illegally off into
the interior.
They
sent them into the interior to be lost.
And that was very deliberate.
In the middle of the night.
Because when they're freed, all of a sudden that detention goes away and they may not have a hearing for years.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was this
was an abomination.
Yeah.
What Biden did.
Yeah. It was an invasion.
Yeah.
That's what it was, an orchestrated invasion.
Right. Imagine having a house and you have the door locked, okay? And to keep people out, and then people know that the door's locked, it's secured, the deadbolt or whatever, and behind that somebody with a gun. That's going to deter 99.9% of your people wanting to break in. However, if you just go over there and unlock the door and leave it wide open and go to bed, that's what Biden did.
And put a sign on the front door.
Y'all come.
Y'all come. Make yourself a sandwich.
Right. That's what Biden did.
Well, in fact, he created an app.
Yes.
Yeah.
These
Here's
people
your app to get around the house.
Press this button here.
In another era that would have been impeachable.
Yes.
What he did, but again, when you've got 50% of the Congress made up of Democrats, and the Democrats agree with Biden to let everybody in, and maybe with the possible exception of John Fetterman, I don't know, but only a handful of Democrats would have been critical of letting millions of people pour in here illegally.
One of the problems that Trump has faced is judges trying to, curtail as much as possible his efforts to deport people. Well, on Friday, they arrested one of these judges. A judge in Wisconsin. Federal agents moved in and arrested her on Friday because she helped an illegal alien. She escorted him out of her courtroom when she heard that federal agents, ICE agents, were in the building. She escorted this guy out of the building. She said, "Come with me." And anyway, this happened several days, but before the arrest on Friday. Again, here's Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about this arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan. Cut number 2.
They found out that the judge learned that ICE was outside because he was an illegal alien from Mexico to arrest him, to deport him. She found that out. She raised her voice with the ICE, told them to go see the chief judge, came back in. While court was going on, she motioned for the defense attorney and the defendant to come up, snuck them out through a private chamber. You can't make this up. In her courtroom, snuck them out a back exit so he could run down the street. ICE ended up chasing him down the street. Someone saw him, chased him, caught him eventually. But, you know, the reason ICE, they make arrests in courtrooms all the time is because it's safe. A defendant has gone through security. They don't have a weapon. It's an easy arrest. No one's injured. But because she did this, she jeopardized the lives of law enforcement officers, even the defendant. By doing this, they had to have a chase down the street.
Well, so this is a wackadoodle liberal judge.
Mm-hmm.
I put the wackadoodle.
Yes.
You could interchange that with liberal Democrat. So
Sounds good to me.
It's a wackadoodle. So she is helping somebody ICE wants to detain or arrest because they're here illegally and they're a hardcore criminal. And so ICE is spending the time, energy, and effort to go to the courthouse to detain this guy, to arrest this guy. And you're telling me a judge inside the courthouse is helping him escape?
Yeah.
Knowing full well that he was going to be arrested.
Yeah. She told the ICE agents to go down the hall somewhere. This guy who is up on charges.
This is in Wisconsin.
This is in Wisconsin. Yeah. This guy is up on charges of assault. His victims are sitting there in the courtroom.
Wow.
He nearly beat somebody to death. Right. That's the allegation.
Yeah.
So she sends these ICE agents, okay, go down the hall, go down there. Okay. And then she says to the charged guy, the illegal alien, and his lawyer, come with me, and we'll go out this door here.
Why did she do that?
She did not want ICE to arrest an illegal immigrant.
Yes.
And listen,
but I mean, how can excuse me, and I know I'm asking a rhetorical question, but how can a judge who is a symbol, if there ever was one, of law and order, she's a state judge, right? I guess.
Yes.
How could she?
She's a Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge.
So she decides it's up to her to help this illegal immigrant criminal escape justice.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you think that's wackadoodle,
yeah.
Okay. Protesters on Saturday marched outside the FBI office, the Milwaukee FBI office, protesting the arrest of the judge. Okay, they're protesting the arrest of the judge, and a Democratic state representative, Ryan Clancy, spoke to the crowd before it started its protest and said, quote, the judiciary acts as a check to unchecked executive power, and functioning democracies do not lock up judges. This is what a Democratic state representative said. Listen, I understand that you don't want a situation where judges who are doing their constitutional and legal duty are not arrested by political opponents. But this judge, I guess the allegation is going to be that she obstructed justice and broke the law. And I would think the Democratic state representative, this Ryan Clancy, would say no one's above the law, even a judge.
Right.
But that's not what the Democrats are saying. And they are, listen, we talked last week about Democratic members of the U.S. Congress flying down to El Salvador and choosing sides with someone who, again, I guess allegedly, but it seems like the Trump administration is very clear. This is an MS-13 gang member and leader, okay? But the Democrats are taking his side. This is crazy.
Well, the Democrats want lawyers. They want to lawyer up for all these thousands and thousands and thousands of gang members and people that we're deporting. They want them all to have court hearings and trials and go on for.
Well, they want to go on for years until Trump's out of office.
Yeah, really, they're siding with the bad guys.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable. But this judge got caught, and now she's being charged federally with obstructing justice. That's just amazing. If she's like you're saying, she's whispering the allegation. Come down here, and we'll hide you from the feds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Gilbert West was a noted author and educator in England. Sir Edward Littleton was a famous English jurist and among the leaders in the English intellectual world. They shared one thing in common. Both were avowed skeptics, and both not only doubted the validity of the way of Christ, but were openly opposed to it. The two men met to determine what course of action they could best take to rid the world of this religion of a madman. After much study and debate, they decided that the best way to get rid of this fairyland faith would be to destroy its basis, its principles, its teachings. They arrived at the conclusion that two parts of the teachings of Christianity should be destroyed above everything else, and that after these were torn down, all the other teachings would come crumbling also. According to these two men, the two beliefs that needed destroying in order to destroy Christianity were the resurrection of its founder and the change of life of its greatest proclaimer, Paul. West took upon himself the task of doing away with the resurrection, and Littleton had the job of proving that there was never a changing experience in the life of Paul. Shaking hands, they parted to go their way and do their job. When they met again, it was agreed, they would have enough evidence to put an end, once and for all time, to this crazy teaching of the Christian faith. You know, there have been down through the years countless others who have attempted to do what Gilbert West and Edward Littleton set out to do. This Galilean has been ridiculed, shamed, mocked, and envied for nearly 2,000 years. Individuals and nations have thrown their full weight and power into the battle to destroy him and his way of life. Some of the best minds in all the world have opposed his way and his followers. People have used his name to curse and his cause to kill. Somehow, through it all, despite all that the combined forces of millions of men could do against him, he still calls to the hearts of men. We can take him out of history books, but we can't take him out of history. We can take men away from him, but we can't take him away from men. We can take him out of our home, but we cannot get him out of our hearts. Following a year of research and study to prove their point, Gilbert West and Edward Littleton met to compare their findings and set about on their self-appointed task. West was surprised when Littleton told him that as a result of his research, he had become a follower of the Christ. And Littleton was equally surprised when West told him that he too had taken up the way of the cross because of his study. Two men who set out to destroy Christianity both became Christians after making a serious study of the faith. You know, one had better be careful about taking this man of Galilee serious. You might just end up following him.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
In Him, we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of Him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of His will. Ephesians 1:11.
American Family Radio.
This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of this show. I'm Tim with Ed and Fred, and again, we thank you for listening to AFR. You guys know that on May 7th, you're going to need a what's called a real ID in order to get on an airplane in America, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
On a commercial aircraft.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You do know this already?
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay. Well, I've got a. You said there's on the state of Mississippi. It's your state. If you look at, let me just slow down. If you have a U.S. passport, that overrides everything.
You can get on a plane with a passport.
With a U.S. passport. However, if you don't have a U.S. passport, you're going to need your driver's license.
State-issued driver's license.
So the driver's license aren't all necessarily real ID.
That's right.
It's called CAPS, REAL ID. Anyway, this goes into effect May 7th, so I didn't want people who are getting ready to get on an airplane to travel somewhere. After May 7th, you're not going to be able to get on the plane unless you have one of these. Either you have a U.S. passport or a real ID.
It's a state issued driver's license, but the states have agreed to work with the federal government to make sure there's this, I guess, supposedly irreproducible or unreproducible little insignia. I think it's a yellow star or something
up in the right-hand
corner.
Yeah,
and that means it's working in conjunction with the federal government. This is a valid driver's license rather than a fake.
But you said that your ID had a star on it.
Yeah,
it does in Mississippi. I'm not sure if they all do.
I don't have my phone.
I don't. Mine's in the car, but mine doesn't. So I've got to go down.
You'll have to get a. It depends when you got yours. Some like in Mississippi, you can get I think like a 10-year driver's license. See, that's it. It's a white star in
showing me an example here
right there.
Oh yeah,
the white star in a yellow circle. I should have said yellow star. That's harkens back to the Nazis, but it's a white star in a yellow circle. Yours does not have that. No. I know in Mississippi you can get like a 10-year license, and
can I get one like on the black market, or
no?
If I want, people
no,
doing that?
No, that's the point of having this. I know you're kidding. That's the point of having this, so you cannot get a fake ID. There's stuff on the back and all that too.
Okay, but you don't have to go to any like secret meetings and make pledges to the devil or anything like that to get this star.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I can only speak for myself.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Now you want to get one that doesn't.
Because it looks like a pentagram to me. I'm just saying.
Well, a star is a pentagram, but this is not an upside down star. That would be a
duly noted. I got a little paranoid there.
Yes,
I admit that.
Now you don't want to get one with a kind of a greasy photo like Brent Creeley. That's whose ID we're looking at.
Oh, really?
He looks like he just came in from working out in the yard.
We don't always look our best when we go get our picture taken for our driver's license.
I tease Brent all the time, and he teases me.
Right.
Good grief! Did
about
your
dog
looks? Chew on this?
You guys tease each other about your appearance?
Oh, anything and everything.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, Brent, for showing us that.
I appreciate it.
All right. Anyway, and also, by the way, a military ID is considered valid.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to your passport, those would be. Other than that, you need a driver's license that has some kind of marker on it from your state indicating it's a quote real ID compliant license, and that goes into effect May the 7th.
Next week sometime.
Yeah. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Next story, Fred.
I think I've mentioned from time to time over the years that I moved here to Mississippi from Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, you've mentioned it.
It's many, many different. It is an ethnic group of various groups of people.
Where in Vancouver?
In Vancouver.
It's an international city. You're right.
It is very much so. And I'm very familiar with the eastern end of Vancouver. A lot of East Indian folks. My wife used to go to some of their kind of secondhand places there in Main Street, Fraser Avenue. Also, a Filipino community is quite large there in Vancouver. And they were having a festival on the weekend. And all I can say is a 30-year-old man has been arrested because this man who's been arrested and now charged with multiple murders because he got in a vehicle and he drove through these people who were out at this street festival. 11 people died. Many more were injured. All we know about this guy who's been arrested, he's 30 years old. His name is Kaji Adam Low. He is well known to police, we are told. He has a history of mental issues, but a very tragic time for that Filipino community. For a while, when we were living in Vancouver, we went to a church that was predominantly Filipinos. We got to know these dear folks. They are happy, they are joyous, they will do anything at all to help you. It was a wonderful church to be part of because it's endless celebration.
How many died?
11 people.
11, including a 5-year-old.
Yes.
So this guy, 30 years old,
yes,
got a car and just started mowing people down.
Yes, he did.
Like what happened in Wisconsin, that Christmas parade?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar.
And New Orleans.
Yep. Very sad.
Remember that? New Orleans, what was that back during the, New Year's? Was that New Year's or something?
Yeah, it was around that time, New Year's.
Time.
Yeah.
Remember the guy got the car and went downtown?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, nowadays you just got to be aware if you have a parade or something like that, you got to
have barriers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like they do at the White House. I mean, these concrete barriers where people can't access where the people are going to be, and that is a terrible shame. But this individual had a history of mental health issues. I don't know what you do about that, because it's not illegal to be struggling with emotional or mental problems until that person struggling with it does something like this. I don't know how you prevent it.
I would say this too. There is evil in the world, and I know a lot of atheists and agnostics and others scoff at even the use of that word. But the devil, if you don't believe in the devil, then you can take that up with Jesus, because Jesus spoke of the devil.
Right.
And I'm not talking about a character in a red suit with horns and a tail and a pitchfork, okay? It's not comical. I'm talking about a real evil entity, a spirit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
If I say something that the Bible doesn't say. So the Bible talks about this, and Jesus talked about a spirit or a entity called the devil, right? Or Satan. Those words are used interchangeably, right?
Yes.
So that what I want to say is that I think with a lot of this mental illness that's out there, maybe not always, but with a lot of the mental illness that is out there, it's just the devil taking over somebody's mind. Because to me, there's no explanation for what happened here, where a man gets in a car and runs over people indiscriminately, even children. For what purpose? And what reason? What does he hope? It's not a political statement he's making. It's not it's not Ukraine versus Russia statement that he's making. When this kind of thing happens and it's senseless, as it appears, this is no particular motivation, then you have to say, well, what happened to this person? Well, I'll tell you what happened to this person. Now, even sometimes they're on drugs, but even so, being on drugs is satanic, I think. When this kind of thing happens like this, and you go, why would somebody do something like this? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it only confirms to me what Jesus talked about and what the Bible talks about, in that somebody can have their minds taken over by the devil. Is that?
Yeah, in the Bible, in the New Testament, it specifically states that Satan filled someone's heart. Okay, and that seems to be different than what the New Testament calls being possessed by a demon.
Right.
Which is the person does not have much control. But if I'm not mistaken, Judas was the statement was that Satan filled his heart. And that seems to be something a little bit different than possession. It seems to be that a person is susceptible to the ideas that Satan or a demon would put into their hearts and minds, which is why drugs is, in some cases, is an open door. Because anytime you lower inhibitions, and it could be drugs, could be alcohol, could be a number of things, you lower inhibitions to these suggestions, and then these suggestions take root and the person carries it out, and they are totally at fault. This is not a case of a demon being in charge. I'm just speaking biblically. Some people out there are probably rolling their eyes. I don't believe in the devil. They don't believe in demons. But this is the clear testimony of the New Testament.
Also, in addition, amen to what you just said in terms of the biblical correctness of it. But I would also say this. What I mean by somebody, this is the hand of the devil on something like this, is that this person, why didn't this person go mud riding? You know, and why didn't they get a truck and go just ride out in the wilderness and howl at the moon or something? No, they decided, I'll get in a car and I'll run over people. I'll mow over people. I'll kill all this people. Do you know these people? No, I don't know these people. But I'll just kill them and mow them down. Well, the Bible says also that the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So the devil hates human life.
Right.
It doesn't matter whose human life it is. So the fact that this guy got in a car and decided to run over people that he didn't even know, there was no purpose or reason to it, no political statement, as I mentioned earlier, just indiscriminate killing and murdering people, says to me his mind was possessed, because there's no other reason for it.
Well, here's just an example from Acts chapter 5. This is the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who wanted people to believe that they had sold all their property and had given it to the church. But what they did was they sold part of it and gave the proceeds to the church, but claimed that they had sold all of it, okay? So they were wanting credit publicly for giving. And so this is what Peter says to him when Ananias came to the church. Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and to keep back for yourself part of the proceeds of the land? While it remained unsold, did it not remain your own? So Ananias wasn't forced to sell the property. He could have kept it, all right? But the interesting part is, for the discussion we're having, is that the Apostle Peter tells Ananias that Satan had filled his heart to lie. And so we're not talking about being controlled by the devil. We're talking about being susceptible to the suggestions of the enemy. And it's a frightening thing. We got to keep our hearts and minds pure, even as Christians, to be obedient to God's word.
Amen. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next.
Well, we'll stay in Canada for a minute because there's a national election up there in Canada today. They are voting on whether to keep the capital L Liberal Party in power, which it has been for 10 years now, or select someone new. Pierre Poilievre is the head of the capital C Conservative Party in Canada. Interesting to talk about this because Donald Trump has been a factor in the Canadian election. The new prime minister who replaced Justin Trudeau, his name is Mark Carney. He's a former financial advisor to Justin Trudeau. If the election had been held a year ago with Justin Trudeau, the Liberals would have lost big time. But what has happened was Justin Trudeau steps down several months ago. This guy, Mark Carney, becomes the new prime minister, head of the Liberal Party, and he has used the tariff war and Donald Trump saying he wants to make Canada the 51st state. And he has made Donald Trump the issue. Hey, if you want to protect Canada against Donald Trump, you need to vote for me. Now, Pierre Poilievre, he doesn't care for the tariff war either. But he is trying to remind and has been trying to remind Canadians throughout the very short campaign up there that, this Mark Carney guy is going to make life just as miserable as life was under Justin Trudeau. The cost of living in Canada is something that you would not recognize here in the United States. Housing costs, the cost of gas. Can you imagine gas prices $6 and $7 a gallon? Just think about that. Justin Trudeau brought in a carbon tax. It's an extra tax every time Canadians fill their cars with oil, gas, whatever the case may be. So what basically Pierre Poilievre is saying, if you want another at least 5 years of what Justin Trudeau gave you, you need to vote for me. If you want that or you don't want that, vote Conservative. So that's what it's all about today. As I say, Trudeau is gone, but what Pierre Poilievre is saying is you better be careful, because this Carney guy who says, yeah, I'm going to change things, I'm going to lower prices for you, et cetera, basically Pierre Poilievre is saying, this guy will continue those policies because he advised former Prime Minister Trudeau on his financial policies.
So who's favored?
Well, here's the interesting thing.
The Liberal or the Conservative?
The Liberal is winning in the polls.
Okay.
And I have a poll from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is Canadian CBC.
Mm-hmm.
I
used to work for them.
Yes. Wait until God delivered you.
Yes.
Liberal Mark Carney is up on the Conservative by a little over 3 points. There are 6 parties listed with an other.
Yes.
So there may be more than one, and that maybe drains some support from one or the other.
Yes, they have what's in Canada. They have the capital L Liberal Party, the capital C Conservative Party. Then they have the New Democratic Party, which is, they're socialist. So is the Liberal Party, but the NDP is socialist. And then they have the Green Party. And then they have
Bloc Québécois.
Bloc Québécois.
Québécois.
All right. There are about 50 federal seats in the province of Quebec, but the Parti Québécois pretty well controls that bloc.
Yeah.
All right.
For those who don't know, Canada is a parliamentarian system of government, so it's not exactly like we have here in the U.S. with representatives who are voted on every 2 and 6 years and president every 4 years. It's different. But so it looks like a fairly tight race. I mean, 3 points to me is.
Well, then there's the People's Party. So you've got the capital Liberal and capital C Conservative.
Yes.
Then you got New Democrat, Bloc Québécois, Green, and People's Party. All those seem like they might be.
And the People's Party is kind of conservative, too.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There's also the Hockey Party, I see here.
All of those.
Oh, that's a real party.
Hockey, yeah.
Oh, hockey. They're all hockey.
Hockey is a party.
Hockey is a party.
Yes.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. So that's what's happening. Big day for our friends.
That's today, right?
That is
Voting?
today up there. And they had to have an election by law by October of this year. But Justin Trudeau was so unpopular, he agreed to resign back there about 2 or 3 months ago.
All right, so let me just ask you a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So is this the kind of thing where they have to have, if they don't get 50%, they have to have coalitions?
Yes, much like we see in Israel.
Yeah.
Israel's much more complicated.
Great Britain, too, right?
Great Britain, the same type of thing. And what happened last time, actually in the last election, the Liberal Party did not get the majority, but the New Democratic Party joined up with them to give them the power. So we'll have to see what happens tonight. Now, the crowds that have been turning out for Pierre Poilievre have been huge. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people showing up for his rallies. He is saying the polls are all wrong, that the polls, believe it or not, they have very liberal media in Canada like they have here.
Yeah.
And so, as it is, newspapers up there, very left-wing. The Globe and Mail newspaper would be Canada's New York Times.
Yeah.
And so their polling has favored Carney in this. The the optimists for the conservative side believe that Pierre Poilievre will win. Those who are following the polls say no, Carney's going to win. We will wait and see.
All right, next story.
Well, on Saturday night in Washington.
SATURDAY. Night.
Yes.
What? Am I the only one?
Bay City Rollers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that?
It's a great song.
Great roller skating song.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Fred.
It was the annual correspondence dinner. Now, in the past, presidents have attended that dinner and other White House officials.
It's a roast.
And it used to be a roast,
Basically a roast.
A comedian.
Roast of politicians, in particular, whoever the president is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, it was a somber occasion this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
No comedians.
Yeah.
And no president at all. They were invited, but
what'd they do?
But guess what? There is a lack of trust between this White House and the mainstream media. Well, Axios reporter Alex Thompson won an award for good journalism at this correspondence dinner on Saturday night, but he got up and gave a little bit of a confession that perhaps we didn't cover the Biden administration the way that we should. So I wanted to play you a little bit of that. It's going to be cut number 10.
Myself included, missed a lot of this story. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows.
What he's talking about there is that we did not cover Joe Biden's mental decline the way we should have. That we didn't regard that as a deception being promoted by Biden's people. That, you remember what Biden's people were saying, hey, he's great, he's really sharp. Nancy Pelosi at one point, he's really sharp as a tack. And, of course, Karine Jean-Pierre, that bastion of integrity, always was defending Joe Biden every day. But Thompson's get up. And you know what was really interesting, we didn't hear it in that clip, when he did this little bit of self-confession, there was only a polite applause. In other words, there wasn't an endorsement that we didn't do our job. Oh, no. Most people in that room believe they covered Biden right.
Well, of course, the neutrality in journalism, which used to be something that was lauded and taught, even when I was in journalism school, certainly when you were, Fred, we were taught, get both sides of the story. Don't show your bias in your news. Now, there's a place for showing your bias as long as people know that's what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like
an op-ed.
Yeah, an editorial comment or an opinion show or something. We all know what Sean Hannity's going to – he's not trying to – Sean Hannity's not on Fox, not going to try to play it down the middle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So – and his audience knows that, and he doesn't say it. So that's fine. But if you're going to be a neutral – try to purport yourself to be a objective news agency like NBC, ABC, CBS, or others, and you want to say you get – but here they're saying this guy's he's a media critic. Who is he?
Alex Thompson.
Of who? Axios?
He's with Axios.
Okay.
He's a reporter.
Which is similar to AP type, similar to it's a news agency.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, left wing for the most part, but a news agency that a lot of people look at. But, listen, what he's saying is these people in the mainstream news media, they did not want to cover Joe Biden's mental decline because they thought it would hurt him in the race against Trump. And the last thing they wanted was Trump being elected.
Yep.
So they needed to protect Biden as much as they could from what became obvious later on, and that is he was mentally declining before our very eyes.
And that June debate forced the media.
Yep, it did.
Yep.
I don't know why Biden never did that debate. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have.
It's kind of ridiculous, though, at this point, to be confessing this.
Yeah, I know.
When it's clear that this is what they did.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we shall return with Steve Paisley Jordahl coming up in 5 minutes after the news. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Dr. Travis was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh. New details emerging about the raid on a Colorado nightclub with connections to illegal alien gangs. Jeff Paul reports.
The DEA says Colorado Springs is waking up to a safer city after hundreds of agents across multiple federal agencies helped enforce that raid on the underground nightclub. Investigators say they found drugs, signs of prostitution, and the presence of gangs like Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and the Hells Angels. The video posted by investigators show agents swarming the Colorado Springs nightclub, and it was an after-hours location early Sunday morning. Crowds of people appear to be trying to escape, but videos later show dozens of suspects in handcuffs. More than 300 law enforcement members were involved in the raid of the club.
The FBI arresting a Wisconsin judge on Friday for hiding a previously deported illegal alien in her jury room in order to stop him from being arrested by ICE officials. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan has been charged with obstruction of an official proceeding after agents tried to arrest Mexican national Eduardo Flores Ruiz. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reacting to the arrest.
She obstructed federal law enforcement who were looking for an illegal alien in her courthouse. She showed that illegal alien the door to evade law enforcement officials. That is a clear-cut case of obstruction. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand that.
Opening statements began in a second trial for former Memphis police officers who are accused in the beating death of Tyree Nichols. Jeff Manasso with more.
3 former police officers will face an out-of-town jury as their trial begins in Memphis, where they pled not guilty to second-degree murder and other charges in the beating death of Tyree Nichols after a 2023 traffic stop in Memphis that was all caught on body cam. 2 other officers are expected to cop plea deals in the state case. All 5 have already been convicted or pled guilty on federal civil rights violations after the Justice Department concluded that the Memphis PD and the 5 accused former officers, who are all black, used excessive force and discriminated against black people. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A Colorado father vented his anger to his school board, claiming the school cost him custody of his own daughter. Bronson Woodruff reports.
House Bill 1312 is making its way through Colorado's legislature. It would classify parents as abusive if they don't affirm their child's so-called gender identity. CBN and others report that if it passes, it could result in children being removed from their homes. One father, Dustin Gonzalez, said it's already happening. He lit into the Jefferson County Public School Board of Education earlier in the month, saying his 12-year-old daughter was socially transitioned at school.
My daughter changed her identity, not after years of discussion or family dialogue, not after joint input from both of her parents. No, this happened quickly, secretly, encouraged by a school-appointed therapist and a system that never thought to include me.
He said that by the time he found out, he was already labeled the problem.
You replaced my voice, you stole my seat at the table, and you made decisions about my daughter without me. And Paula Reed, you're in my district. I've heard you're not running again. If that's true, good. But if you're planning something bigger, if you think higher office is your next move, then let me be crystal clear. I will be your opposition. At every campaign stop, on every ballot, in every debate, you've lost the right to lead. And I'll make sure voters know why. Don't think you can take a man's child from him and not reap a whirlwind. You don't get to raise our children for us, and if those who replace you try as you have, we'll replace them too.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Russia announcing a temporary pause to their ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Stephanie Bennett reporting from London.
Posting on Telegram, the Kremlin said the 72-hour truce will start at midnight on May 8th and last until May 11th, which coincides with Russia's 80th anniversary celebrations, marking the end of the Second World War. The Kremlin said that Russia believes that the Ukrainian side should follow this example, and in the event of any violations, Russia will give a proportionate and efficient response, reiterating Russia's willingness to enter peace talks without preconditions. Speaking earlier, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt says President Trump has made it clear he wants to see a permanent ceasefire.
While he remains optimistic he can strike a deal, he's also being realistic as well. And both leaders need to come to the table to negotiate their way out of this.
In London, Stephanie Bennett, Fox News.
More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR, wherever you may be. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Vitagliano, and now joining us in studio is our newsman, Steve Paisley Jordahl. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
So, guys, we went to the break, and you came into the studio, and Ed and I took a break and went out, and I got some more coffee.
There you go.
If they ever determine coffee's bad for you, I'm in trouble. That's all I got to say. I don't want to know about it. Okay. Somebody had brought some, one of our staff members, who I don't know.
You don't know the staff? You don't
Well,
know.
I don't know who brought. I don't know who brought the little
Right.
cupcakes.
Yeah, right.
There's some little cupcakes out there.
Yeah.
There were
In the little kitchen just down the hall.
little kitchen down the hall. There was about a little box that looked like to me about 12 little
Right.
cupcakes. I'm talking about the mini cupcakes.
One bite.
Okay, so there were 2 left. All right.
Oh.
Now there's a lot of
Dilemma.
people. There's a lot of people who work here, so it's not surprising. But I looked on the back. I confess I look at calories now.
Yes, I do.
Don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. You got to.
You have to.
Otherwise, you end up.
Unless you don't care. And
Unless
then
you don't care.
You get home at night and you've already used up 2,000
And you don't
calories.
care long enough. It shows. Okay.
So how much? So the little mini cupcakes. I'm
Well,
curious.
somebody torn the calorie sign off.
Oh, that's not right.
That's what. I think they just try to say if I don't see it, it doesn't. It isn't real. It's kind of like covering your head at night.
I've told myself that, and the next morning, guess what's real? The scale. The scale doesn't care what you said.
Anyway, I wanted to see, how many of my daily calories am I taking up with this? If I do take one of these little mini cupcakes, and I'm gonna guess they'd be 100. They had some.
That's probably 150
on top.
Yeah, with the icing, that's pure sugar.
So you do the sort of the.
I always look at the calories.
I don't have a calculator in my hand.
Right.
I just sort of mentally do it because really, as you get older, you have to watch. You can put on a lot of pounds in a short period of time.
Yes,
so
it's unfair, totally unfair the way that
it is,
the way that works.
But
and I will say this: the problem with those little mini cupcakes, okay, is you may say, well, at least it's not a big cupcake. But guess what? You eat that one little cupcake, and your brain. We were talking about the devil in the last segment. The devil whispers in your brain, "It's only a little cupcake. You can have 2."
And there is 2.
And there
are 2.
Yeah.
Whatever the right verb is there.
So
there are 2.
There are 2.
Maybe they'll be gone when we leave we get off the show.
Just don't even walk down
I
that way.
I didn't get it because it doesn't even have the calorie.
When we get out of here at the end of the show, take a right.
Too close to lunch.
Don't go down there.
I'm not. I already had popcorn, whatever that.
According to the internet, which is never wrong.
Are we giving a mini cupcake calorie count update?
A mini cupcake from Walmart, which is what I'm assuming these are, about 93 calories.
Yeah, right around.
You were right on.
You round that up to 100.
Yep.
So anyway, so how many do you, not to get too personal, how many do you try to stay under for a day? 24 hour
Under
period.
2,000.
Under 2,000. That's for a male in the 60s. I think I read that. You burn about 2,000 calories a day naturally.
Yes.
You can just sit there and stare at the TV. You can burn 2,000 calories. It's amazing how that
Especially if
works.
my team's losing.
Hey, if you get
That's
up and
my
go,
exercise plan right there.
and if you get up and go to the refrigerator,
well,
you might burn 2,050
That's right.
calories. So
I heard a comedian say, I'm not even sure who it was. It was a clean comedy. He said, I'm just going to tell you how bad it's getting for me in terms of being in shape. He said, but I was watching a football game, and they kicked off to the other team, and I went to the refrigerator to get something to drink. And by the time I walked back to my chair, that guy had already run 100 yards. In the time it took me to walk to the refrigerator and come back, he said, I am so slow. I just thought that was funny.
So football players are known for their 40s.
Yeah.
40-yard dashes, a 4.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So this guy ran a 5-minute
It's
refrigerator dash.
It's totally understandable that a football player would beat you
Sure.
into the end zone, but it was funny. He said, all I did was walk to the refrigerator and back, and this guy ran 100 yards, he said, with other guys trying to stop him. He still beat me.
Sometimes my wife tries to stop me going to the refrigerator.
So 100 calories.
The dog blocks for
a one-bite cupcake.
One bite.
It's 100 calories.
100 calories.
All right, I got you. Theoretically, I could have 20 of those in a day and not gain a pound.
Not a thing. And sit and watch TV.
If that's all you ate.
Your arteries would probably scream out. What are you trying to do to us? But anyway. All right, Steve, what's your first?
And that is our nutrition moment.
Okay, we got
American Family Radio.
Spain, Portugal, and parts of France are, as we speak, trying to pull out of a catastrophic power failure.
Seriously, I've heard of this.
No,
when did this happen?
Yeah,
this broke.
This is breaking news.
So a nationwide power outage in Spain, nationwide in Portugal, and parts of France, and everything went down. No trains, no planes,
kidding.
Hospitals. No, hospitals are on generators. No cell phones, networks, everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is ongoing right now.
They're recovering from it. Yeah, they're
Are they back up?
Not yet. Not all together, as far as I know.
Yeah.
They're still.
How do you say preppers in Spanish?
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
Because they're saying who's laughing now.
This Spanish power grid. I'm looking at a story on CNN.
Wow.
Spanish power grid operator Red Electrica. I'm guessing that's the name of the company and not the guy who does it. Said power is starting to return, but earlier it said restoring power could take between 6 and 10 hours.
How long was it off?
I don't know. Let's see if
I guess it was sometime in the morning.
Yeah, mid-morning is when it, at local time is when
So a few hours.
Yeah.
A few hours. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned what countries were affected?
Spain and Portugal, all of the Iberian Peninsula, and parts of France, which I'm assuming southern France.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, that's a warning.
Yeah.
That I think we all have in the back of our mind, we have a fear that kind of thing could happen to us in the U.S. And I'm not talking because of a hurricane or an earthquake or something like that. I'm talking about a cyber attack by another country.
Or an EMP.
Or an EMP, which in shorthand, tell folks what that is.
Electromagnetic pulse, which could be triggered by a nuclear detonation up in the atmosphere.
Right.
And or an EMP. An EMP one is the nuclear bomb without the bomb. It's just
it's okay. So if a nuclear device detonates, usually it's just above a city, and then you get that fireball. You get the shock wave and the fireball, heat, radiation, all that. But if you detonate it, I forget how far up, whatever it is, like a mile above the city, the electromagnetic pulse fries the grid, and it could knock out the entire eastern seaboard. Or the entire
It would be an act
Midwest.
of war.
It would be devastating.
And you have to wonder. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear all of Spain and all of Portugal and parts of France are completely shut down. You think,
Yeah.
Something out.
If they're restoring power this quickly, it's not an EMP.
But they're not at war.
No, no one's saying
Portugal never goes to war.
By the way, if it was an EMP, don't
they?
you think someone would have noticed an atomic bomb?
Right.
going off.
Stuff is falling out of the sky here, but we're not sure what's going on.
Well, plus an EMP, when it fries, when it fries the grid, the power grid, there's no easy fix of that. You don't just go, plug a few things back in. All that stuff has to be, if it's not in a supply closet somewhere, you've got to replace all that, and it could take years. Worst case.
There's one element of our daily lives that I think we all take for granted. That if you had a power grid go out for even a day or two or three, it would be really bad. I'm just getting simple with my language here. You know what that would be? That would be red lights.
Oh yeah, all the things that we take for granted.
Traffic lights.
Your refrigerator no longer works. Your food spoils. You can't charge phones. I'm not talking to play games on it. You can't communicate with anyone.
But I was just thinking the other day. I was driving down the road, and I thought, you know what? We all depend on this traffic light to protect our lives.
Yeah.
And now I know. We don't think anything about driving through intersections based on whether the light's green or yellow. Yeah. And I'm just saying that you talk about something that's a necessity of life, especially in urban areas, that you don't really think about too much, but that we've all known when the power goes out, people stop at 4 lights and go. People do comply, but it's still dangerous when you have that happen.
Probably the first guy wouldn't know if it just
That's
went
true.
out.
That's true. All right, next story.
Hey, I want to talk about something that, as a reporter, has kind of bugged me for a while. Maybe it's bugged you guys too. You ever notice when you're listening to some networks and they go to talk about something going on in Central America, the reporter will go, and down in Guatemala, or El Salvador.
You mean they change up?
They have the accent.
They try to say it with an accent.
Well, Rob Finnerty, who's on Newsmax, noticed this too. Cut 12.
Every time we hear a Hispanic name on TV, whether or not the anchor is Hispanic, we suddenly have to shapeshift into a perfect Hispanic accent. Police arrested 25-year-old Ilan Alain Sanchez. And I mean that honestly. Why do we do that? When I say Alejandro Mayorkas, I just say Alejandro Mayorkas. But on CNN, it's Alejandro Mayorkas. I'm Irish. When police arrest someone with an Irish name, I don't say police just arrested 25-year-old Charlie McLaughlin. I just say police arrested Charlie McLaughlin. Stop that. Stop.
That's funny because that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't bug me as a reporter.
They don't do the Lucky Charms accent if it's somebody who's Irish.
I think it's just trying to be PC.
Yeah.
Trying to be politically correct and pronounce a foreign name in a way that is respectful.
I love the Spanish language. It's a beautiful language. I just like saying stuff in it.
Like what
stuff?
Like
stuff.
Can we have some more Cheeps?
Oh wow!
No, I'm just
more Cheeps.
you and AOC and what was it Hillary that did that?
No, some more Cheeps.
That's my one. I have a story on that, but I've told it before. Nobody wants to hear it.
No, we do. Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I was out, and for those of you who have heard this before, and I know some of you have, I was out. This is before my kids were married, but they were grown. I think my daughter was in college. My son was in high school. So my wife and I, the four of us, are at a Mexican restaurant, our favorite Mexican restaurant in the town we live, Pontotoc, Muy Pueblo, okay? And I have always had a bad habit. I got this from my dad. When I'm around a foreign accent, I slip into the accent without knowing it. And so the waiter came by and took our order, and I said to the waiter, could you please bring some more Cheeps? And yes, he left, and my wife and kids were looking at me like I had just coughed up a hairball. And I said, what? What? And they said, you asked for more Cheeps. I said, no, I did not. They all three of them said, yes, you did.
You did.
And it was unintentional. I wasn't trying to do it, but I had slipped into that. Please bring some more Cheeps.
That's funny.
If that waiter is listening now.
Right. You
I
tip well,
apologize.
though.
I do.
You did give him a tip, right?
Give him a tip.
A good tip.
Good tip.
A good tip.
You want a tip? Bring me some more cheap.
Me, no disrespect. I'm going to get myself in trouble. Yeah. All right,
go ahead,
we need to
Steve.
move on.
Next story.
All right. We're learning new details about the horrific crash between that Army helicopter and a jet passenger plane outside of Reagan National Airport a month or so ago. And what we're learning from audio recordings and such is that the helicopter was at risk, at fault. The pilot of that helicopter, a woman, was being rated. In other words, every so often you have to fly a plane with an instructor just to make sure that you're current. She had some 5,000 hours in this helicopter. She was not a new pilot.
Right.
And apparently what happened is the control tower told them there's a passenger jet in your area. And the pilot said, can we go by visual reckoning? In other words, we want to look at it, we want to see it and avoid it with our eyes instead of you telling us altitudes and everything. And generally that happens. They did tell this pilot to about 30 seconds, I think, before the crash to bank or to go a different direction.
The helicopter
pilot didn't do it. And then we all saw what happened. The accident happened. So sad, but that's what we're learning about this crash.
Well, the speeds you're talking about, especially the passenger jet, and being over, being over a major city like that. We were talking about that in our story meeting this morning. Don't know how wise that is. I guess you have to be trained if you're going to fly over a major metropolitan area to know how to do that. But
well, if your helicopter base, and so some of the military bases I've seen, for example, we mentioned the raid in Colorado Springs. I lived there for a while. There are military bases all over the place. The Air Force has Peterson Air Force Base, and they share an airport with Colorado Springs International Airport. In other words, it's divided in half. Half of the airport is the military, and the other half is civilian. So it's kind of hard in that point to avoid the area because it's your area. But yeah.
Well, that is sad. Anytime you hear about pilot error, it's sad because you want to say, well, if only, but complicated machinery, high speeds or whatever, those things happen. So
also, like Fred's pointed out before, if you look at this, if you ever want to look at something and be amazed, this flight tracker.
Flight tracker, yeah.
All over the U.S., there are hundreds and hundreds, well, maybe 1,000 or more planes in the air at the same time, crisscrossing the United States, small, large aircraft. I mean,
it gives me a headache just looking at it.
Yeah, but it's a miracle that no more accidents happen than do.
Well, on Flight Tracker, every plane looks like they're the size of New Jersey.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Which makes it
a
all
lot of space out there. This is a huge country. That's what Europeans say when they come and visit for vacation and everything. They cannot believe how massive this country is because, of course, in Europe, when you have power, you can cross a country by train in an hour or two.
Yeah, my understanding is sometimes people will come to this country and they'll say, all right, we're going to spend one day in New York, and then then the next day we're going to D.C., and then the next day we're going to go to Disney World, and people are going, do you know? And they're driving.
Yeah.
You know how far Disney World is from?
They have no clue.
Yeah.
So a lot of space.
And then we're going to drive to the Grand Canyon.
That's right.
No, you're not.
All right. Hey, well, we've been talking a little bit about artificial intelligence and its potential for good and bad.
We've picked on the Democrats' party enough this morning. I don't think you need to keep on bashing them.
Artificial intelligence. That's funny.
Get it. Well, there's a a researcher named Jeffrey Hinton. By the way, he just won the Nobel Prize in physics. I listened to him. He says, I'm not a physicist. I don't know why they chose. He says, I'm a philosopher who has his head in tech. But
they never did contact me.
No?
I entered my project.
Yeah.
Your science project?
It was a physics project, and I sent it in, and I never heard back from them. You telling me now they've already announced the winner?
And it wasn't even
I didn't even get the courtesy of you finished third. Or
it wasn't even a physicist.
Honorable,
lost to a non-physicist.
Honorable mention?
Yeah.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. So I lost to a guy who isn't even a physicist.
No. Just
unfair.
Yeah, he's a philosopher who goes
What do you do?
into
Go ahead.
tech. Anyway,
sorry.
He was talking on CBS Saturday morning, and his name is Jeffrey Hinton. And he was, I'm going to have you listen to this was, I didn't put her name. This is Savannah Guthrie, I think, and Jeffrey Hinton talking about AI and its potential. And so let's hear cut 11.
He believes there is a 10 to 20% chance that AI, artificial intelligence, will take over humanity, and big tech is failing to get a hold of it.
The best way to understand it emotionally is we're like somebody who has this really cute tiger cub. It's just such a cute tiger cub. Unless you can be very sure that it's not going to want to kill you when it's grown up.
10 to 20% chance that artificial intelligence eventually takes control from humans.
As a 66-year-old man, I'm good with those odds. You know what? I'll be gone by the time it takes over. I'm just kidding. Yeah. I have kids and grandkids.
Right.
Listen, I'm, at the same time, I'm looking at a story where this is from Fox News. Billionaire business magnate Elon Musk declared in a post on X that robots will outmatch surgeons in a matter of years. He says robots will surpass good human surgeons within a few years and the best human surgeons within less than 5 years, or about 5 years. So yeah. This is one of those things where I don't know if that's true or not. He's smarter than I am, but where AI could be a wonderful thing for humanity, or it could take us over and enslave the human race.
Yeah.
And to the point that's being made in your story, Steve, people need to pay attention to this threat and take steps to prevent it. That's what the person's saying.
Now, you know, kind of ironically, what the biggest hindrance to AI is? It's computing power. They have to have so many computers to run an artificial the farms of them, and they're building. Musk is building a huge data center just to hold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of computers to do his AI. And so they say that if it got to the point where it was like controlling people, it would take the output of half of our energy use in the United States would go to that. We can't do that. No one's going to do that. So that's going to kind of put a little brake on it.
Listen, I also did a science project with you know what Tim's
the volcano
about.
Thing?
Yeah, the volcano. No, I had a potato and I just let it grow little strands out of it. No, listen. So this is a completely non-scientific belief that I have. I have read a lot about this is from a science fiction perspective because, well, anyway, that's not important. But so let me just say this. I question what they're saying about AI taking over. I think all of that is built upon the belief that the human brain is a machine, and it's not. And I'm not sure that AI can make that jump and become self-aware.
Yeah, because somebody has to program the AI.
Well, the point of AI is it takes what you program it and it builds on it,
and it begins to program itself.
Yeah.
That's the.
So you had the potato project.
The potato project. You know, it has All the eyes.
I did the
starting
paper mache volcano. I was worried that you did that too.
No idea why you didn't get a Nobel Prize for that.
Well, I want the Nobel people to send me my volcano back and the baking soda.
That's right.
Okay, because I need it.
That's
all right? See you tomorrow, everybody.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the big ship out in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Your great-grandmother did her part, too.
Was she on a ship?
Oh, no. She stayed back home.